There's a fundamental problem with VR at this point in time, and that is the obnoxious cable that tethers you to your computer. Spend enough time in VR on a PC and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's quite easy to get tangled up and completely break immersion, or even worse, trip and fall. But don't worry, I've got a solution, and what's even better is that it's cheap. So, of course, the basic setup of any PCVR system is a PC, the headset, controllers, and a cord that runs from your headset to your PC, even if you have an Oculus Quest. If you want to play low latency VR games on your computer, then you're going to need a tether. There are, of course, wireless alternatives like the TP-Cast for the original Oculus Rift headsets, and the Vive wireless adapter for the HTC Vive, Vive Pro, and now the Cosmos. But holy crap, $300 to get rid of a cord? Look, it's for a good reason. I mean, there's an absolute ton of data being transferred when playing VR games, so these wireless setups are pretty impressive as is. But even though they are so expensive, they still have their own drawbacks and sometimes don't even do their primary job as well. Plus, battery life is a pain unless you have 10 battery banks just lying around. But that wireless feeling really makes it worth it for a lot of people. If you have done fully wireless VR, it's honestly hard to go back to stepping over and getting hogtied by your HMD's cord. So, the alternative. Ironically, while wireless PC VR setups are literally using the most advanced wireless data transfer techniques that we have as consumers, we're going back to a technology developed 3,000 years ago. The pulley. So I actually already made a video on setting up a pulley system for VR like 5 months ago. This, however, is an update because Kiwi made a far superior silent pulley system that I've actually learned a better way to set up the pulleys in general. For a long time now, I've been using pulleys for my VR setup, and I honestly prefer them to any wireless solution that I've tried, and there are 3 main reasons. And by the way, if you're just looking for a tutorial on how to set them up, just check the pinned comment. There'll be a timestamp there. Well, back to my reasoning. The package is pretty darn cheap. For everything you need, it's 25 freaking bucks. That is almost a steal, considering the Vive wireless adapter is $300. You get a somewhat similar experience for a 1/12 of the price. Ease of setup. You don't have to worry about transmission interference, software malfunctions, or hardware failures. Your cable is connected just the way it should be, it's just elevated. Plus, it takes like 15 minutes tops to install. And this is the really important part, at least for me. Latency. There is a reason why pro gamers have stuck with corded mice, keyboards, and controllers up until very recently, and that's latency. The same goes for VR esports. They are all using tethered VR setups. If you play competitive games or you take yourself seriously in terms of VR esports, using a wireless adapter is putting yourself at a slight disadvantage. Is it gigantic? Not really. Can you deal with it? Yeah. Sure, plenty of people do. But if you want to eliminate every disadvantage of your tools and maximize the advantage of freedom within your play space, there is no better way to do it than to use a pulley system. So, which one do you get? I'm showing you the best one that I have tried yet, and that's the Kiwi V2 Silent VR cable system. Previously, for more than a year, I had used the older style of pulleys that made loud clinking noises when they retracted, used a weird setup of rubber bands, and just in general, weren't as polished of a product as these. Kiwi did send these to me, but I was under zero obligation to make a video or even talk about it. I just love the product. So what do you get in the box? 8 sticky ceiling hooks, 8 screw-in ceiling hooks, some mounting hardware, 6 pulleys, a couple Allen keys, and this interesting keyring looking deal that we'll get into in just a minute. Of course, before you even consider the system, you should look at your play space and make sure that it's compatible. If you have ceilings that are slanted or really low or extremely high, the pulleys may not work as well. Also, if you have popcorn ceilings, then you're going to need to screw the pulleys in. So if you're renting a house and don't want to put holes in the ceiling, just be aware. The ideal setup is at least a 6 foot by 6 foot play space with a moderately heighted ceiling with no fan. In my old room, I actually took down my fan just to put up the pulleys, and I didn't regret it. I do know that that's a big commitment for some people though. I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could just make sure the fan never turns on, but fans and pulleys and cables gets a little too close to a Final Destination scene for my liking. Now, the actual setup. So there are 2 ways to orient your pulleys. There's the classic way that I have had my system set up like for over the past year, and that's inline. You put 3 to 4 pulleys in line and have the last one dump your cable right in the middle of your play space. And then there's the way that you should do it. 2 pulleys in line and 3 more pulleys oriented in a triangle connected to a final pulley that goes to the headset. It looks crazy, but believe me, this is by far the best and least intrusive way that I've ever played VR with a cable. You feel very little pulley tug, and the final one acts like a swivel, handling a lot of the tangling issues that you could get with one of these systems. Setup is actually easy as heck. I'm going to show the setup using the sticky hooks, but screwing is just the same. You're just, well, screwing it in. So put your first hook somewhere directly above your PC's location. It doesn't have to be exact, just somewhere close to it. In order to properly stick the hooks to the ceiling, just peel off the sticky side, put it on the surface, and press down hard on all edges for 5 to 10 seconds. As long as the surface isn't too bumpy, you should be good to go. Next, put your second hook about 2 to 3 feet away towards the center of your play space. Now here is where you could either go inline or just use the superior setup. If you want inline, just put your final pulley in the center of your play space, then we'll get into setting up the wires. For the better way, grab 3 hooks and put them in a triangle around 2 to 3 feet or so on each side of the center of your play space. This doesn't have to be an exact measurement, you can likely eyeball it just fine. Okay, so now that all the hooks are in place, now comes setting up the pulleys and routing your cable. So the biggest advantage of this new setup versus the old style of pulleys is that you no longer have to fidget with the rubber bands to secure your pulley. The built-in cable tie works great, just whatever you do, don't do a handstand in VR chat and fail at it. I broke one of my cable ties, and that's why I have one white pulley in my setup. Okay, so start with your first pulley. Secure the cable to it, move to the next, and leave about this much slack. This will be far enough away from your playing area that you shouldn't have problems with actually touching that cable slack, but will give you enough cable to work with to move around. Now to set up your crazy spider rig, secure 3 pulleys to the ceiling and then connect them with the cable ties to the weird keyring thing, leaving the hook side down. Now add in your final pulley and secure the cable to it with a little less slack than you put in your last section. Ideally, your final pulley should spit your headset cable right in the middle of your play space and should have just a little bit of slack. Too much and you'll get tangled, too little and you'll feel tugging on your headset. Now, this part is optional, but in order to keep both my headsets safe and not have to deal with attaching my pulleys all the time, I actually screw a hook in past my final pulley to leave my headset on the ceiling. It's worked great for a long time now, and I highly recommend it. It just keeps everything safe and out of harm's way. And that's the basic setup, but wait, there's actually a few more things or extra tips that will make your experience far better. First off is setting the cable tension. Using the Allen keys, you could put more or less tension on the pulleys if you find that one of them is pulling too much or too little. I left mine stock and have not had an issue. The next big one is using a software like Turn Signal to count how many times you have turned around visually. This way you could avoid your cable getting into a tangled up mess. It's a software that always runs and you just look down to see how twisted up you are. If you get way twisted, then just take your HMD off and let it unravel itself so you don't have to turn around 20 times and get dizzy. So all in all, I've been loving my new pulley setup. It's better than the previous iteration, cheap, easy to get set up, and improves VR in so many ways. Hopefully I covered everything I needed to cover, from why you would even want to go with the hassle, the benefits, and you were able to get your own system set up. If you do have any questions at all, of course leave a comment, but my Discord is a great place to talk about this. I've got a bunch of people there, including myself, that can assist you with your own specific scenario or give you some extra tips. Down below, I do have an Amazon affiliate link to these pulleys, so go ahead and click on that if you're interested, and it just gives me a little kickback. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.